welcome to the Traveling Knitter channel. My name is Steph and I live in downtown Columbus, Ohio. And this video is going to be my June wrap up and July TBR. Wrap up means I'm going to talk about the books that I read in June, and TBR means to be read. I feel like I might be in a bit of a reading slump and like a knitting heyday, I guess. I ended up only reading 6 books, which I think might be more than I read previous month, but 2 of them were graphic novels, so really only read 4 books. I read less than I had planned to. I had lofty goals and I did not succeed with those lofty goals, like I haven't been for the last couple months. So I'm gonna change it up a bit. First, I want to talk about the books that I did manage to read in the month of June. 4 of them I do not have with me because they were either ebooks or library books that I have already returned. So let's start with Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, and I don't have the illustrator off the top of my head, so that should be on the screen with the image of the book. This is so cute. This came out quite a few years ago. It is just like such a good book to read at the end of summer because it is about 2 characters who have worked at this like pumpkin patch. And this pumpkin patch is more than just pumpkins. There is, so like where I live in Ohio, we would call it corn mazes. So like the focal point would be the corn maze rather than the pumpkin patch, but like both of those would be there. Or I guess you would just call it a farm. So, I don't know if this is like a thing everywhere, but definitely in the Midwest, around fall time, you can go to these farms and they're still typically locally owned, but they make their money from the people coming and eating the food and going through the maze rather than selling the corn. At least that's my understanding when I have talked to a few of the people that work at the farms, is that they actually don't really they make way more money off of turning the corn into a corn maze than selling the corn. So it felt very relatable in that growing up, my family, we always went to a farm called the Lind Fruit Farm. It is still there, it still runs, still has a giant corn maze, and I always feel kind of nostalgic when I go. There are some corn mazes in Dayton where I previously lived for 7 years, and I've gone to a couple of those. They're about the same size, but in my head, Lind Fruit Farm is just special, which I have been back, and it's like all the rest of them. I don't know, right? You kind of, when you're younger, it's seen differently, but I'm going off on a tangent to essentially say that this book felt very relatable. Not that I've ever worked at one of these things, but going to a pumpkin patch or a corn maze and the little tractor, not little, it's a big tractor, pulling little cars where kids are in, and just kids running around, there being a petting zoo, being able to get caramel apples at kettle corn. Kettle corn's my favorite. Apple cider. All of it is just very familiar to what my fall is like. I don't know, is that like the classic fall? Because not even within the United States, not every single area has that. Are there even pumpkin farms like in Florida? I don't think so, right? Pumpkins can't grow there. See, I don't even know. This is a lot to say. I really liked it. It felt very relatable, and the characters were just so cute. Basically, it is their last day working at this pumpkin patch before the end of the season, and they go off to college. Pretty sure they're going to college. Think so. I think they're right. They're either going to college or they're graduating college. I feel like they're going to college, but either way, it's kind of like their last summer and they're on this quest to get one of the characters to finally talk to his crush. And so they basically run around the entire farm looking for her, because every time they get to a new spot, it's like, oh, you just missed her kind of thing. It was a lot of fun, very cute. I gave it 4 stars. I would recommend it to anyone. It's a super quick read. The pictures are very beautiful. The illustrations are great. And it felt very homey, very fall-esque. Granted, I did read it in the summer, but you know, very good. Really liked it. And then as my manga, I did read Wotakoi, Volume 4, which is by Fujito. It'll be over there. I actually really like this one. I gave it 4 stars, so I'm pretty sure I'm ranking this one as the best out of all of them. This one has a very cute moment where 2 of the characters are kind of like, it's not that they have a misunderstanding, it's just that you don't quite understand why someone finds something important. And so you think you have a solution of how to fix the scenario and you're like, oh, you know, I did a really good job, but actually you completely missed the point and then made it worse. And you know, it was just, again, relatable. I find that manga relatable because the characters are older, they are in the workforce, you know, they're not like kids in middle school and high school not explaining things and getting so embarrassed about like the dumbest thing. So it's definitely more relatable in that aspect. It is a very dense manga. Like, this manga takes hours to read. There are a lot of words, which that sounds silly, but I feel like a standard shoujo manga takes me maybe 45 minutes to read it, or even half an hour, whereas Wotakoi takes me maybe 2 hours to read. Also at the end, which I really enjoy this part, there is always explanations for inside jokes or like off comments that you kind of just like read, and at least for me, I don't understand because I live in the US, and so certain things just are not applicable to me, and I appreciate that being explained. So like the author will explain the like foods, they'll explain like comments or references to TV shows or pop culture to Japan, that it may, you know, isn't necessarily going to make its way over to the US or Europe or Australia or any of these other countries. At least I don't think so. Maybe Australia, since you are closer to Japan, but that's one thing I noticed when I last visited Australia, is that the Asian food that you had was just like, I felt like authentic Asian food. So like here in the US, when you go to an Asian restaurant, typically it's like a Chinese buffet, and it's just Americanized what we think of as Chinese food, I guess. So for me, I'm like, oh, I want to go to get dim sum because I feel like that's going to be more authentic, and you know. And when I went to Australia, I had the same vibe with like Mexican food. I was like, what the heck is this? This isn't Mexican food. Whereas in the US, we're so much closer to Mexico. So like when I was in Texas, we went to a Mexican restaurant and I could not read what the menu was. And so I just kind of picked stuff, and I picked something and they said, oh, I don't think you want that one, which was actually cow brain. So I'm I wasn't mad that they were like, oh, you white girl do not want cow brain, because I did have to go back to work, and if that wasn't gonna sit well with my stomach, I did not need that to be a thing while working on my feet around a bunch of dudes. So, you know, but this is a lot to talk about this manga. But if you are at all interested in manga, you've never tried one, I don't know if this would be the one I would recommend, because not a lot happens. This one had like a major event, but again, it was kind of not that major. I feel like I'm always talking this manga down. I like it, but it is not as action-packed, angsty, high stakes as your average shoujo, shonen, or like the fantasy fighting kind of ones. So I'm not sure. It is slice of life, but like older. It isn't graphic, I will say that. They're like, it's not graphic or smutty or anything like that. Not at all. Very PG. Then I finished a middle grade book called The Lost Language by Claudia Mills. And this one, the whole book was written in almost like verse or poetry, kind of. So it was a very, very quick read. I feel like it took me almost the same amount of time to read this as it takes me to read Watakoi. So, and with this one, it was way darker than I thought it was gonna be. Like, way darker. I don't like the phrase trigger warning. I find that phrasing really annoying. So I would prefer to just say themes of, or what's in this book. So what is in this book, it is younger audience, so it's not fully in your face except for one. There is an incident so there's depression, and then there is attempted suicide, and there is like alcoholism, but not super in your face. It's more like you don't really know why, but then you kind of piece it together. The main character, so her mom's job is to write up, document languages that are going extinct. And she's a professor. She's kind of always stressed about getting her next grant. And our main character, the daughter, she has one best friend and then a couple other friends that she's pretty close with. But her best friend tends to always like bulldoze everything. Like, she's the decision maker. If she doesn't want to do it, they're not doing it. She's the loud one. Our main character is kind of the shadow almost. And her mom can't stand that. Her mom is always wanting the main character to be more opinionated, to stand up for herself, to make decisions on her own, but don't involve, the best friend. So our main character kind of feels pressured. Maybe she doesn't, maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But her mom is definitely pushing things onto her. And so in the story, they decide, the friends decide to pick a language and try and save it. And again, they're like 12. They're kids. They pick a language, they're gonna go save it. They watch YouTube videos, they make like a club to learn the language. No one joins their school club. They even went and got an adult to be the advisor, because you always have to have an advisor. No one shows up to their club, so they're kind of bummed about that. And then there is this moment at the kind of towards the tail end where her mom just like explodes and is like, that's not how you save a language, like basically, poo-pooing on them. And it was just, I don't know. It's like I felt I could feel where the mom was coming from, and that it's kind of like with Watakoi, where you think you're going to help someone, but in actuality, you're missing the whole point, and you're not doing it at all. It's almost like you're making fun of them, even though that's not your intention. So there was quite the ending to it, and it is pretty open-ended with the ending, but you know, these middle grade books that I read, they have like really hard topics in them. So it was quite something. I gave it 3 stars because I did find the mom ridiculous, but also sometimes I have a hard time feeling empathy for others, and so I got what the book was trying to tell me, but I was just like, shouldn't have done that, not very nice. And then the last book that I don't have here that I will show you is Guild, which is the first one in the Plated Prisoners by Raven Kennedy. This book has been all over TikTok. I had downloaded it on my Kindle several months ago. I have a secret. If you have a Kindle, I don't know if it works for all Kindles, but it works for mine. I download all the books that I can from the library, and then I put it on airplane mode. But I put it on airplane mode for about 4 to 5 months, and then the books never leave. It's great because I can't read 20 Kindle books in 4 weeks because I am reading tons of books at the same time. So and then sometimes like those Kindle wait times are so long. The library does get the copy back. It's not like the copies go missing. The library automatically takes it back, even if you're on airplane mode. But it's just nice because then I can read it whenever I want. And I love that. I love that. So just a tip. So Guild is like a King Midas retelling, which I'll be honest, I was not very familiar with. Didn't really know that much other than it was like gold touched. And so in this story, our main character, she is the one that's like fully gold, and she has this like really weird relationship with King Midas. I have a hard time piecing it together. It's never fully explained, but it acts like it's fully explained. Like she had a hard life as a child, and then he like found her, rescued her, but by rescuing her, he basically like put her in a cage, and she is essentially like a royal prisoner that can't really go anywhere, but oh my gosh, he loves me. So it's just really kind of weird. And there's this moment where she feels betrayed, and then he's like, oh, I just couldn't tell you. Really, I'm a great person, and I'm not about it. I don't like I don't like their relationship at all. And at the end of the first book, we're introduced to another character, and it is almost exactly like A Court of Thorns and Roses. When I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I actually liked Tamlin. I didn't love him, but I liked Tamlin. In this book, I do not like King Midas. I think he is a manipulating jerk. So I'm very much like, I don't even think it's a prediction. It's like guaranteed that this new character is essentially her love interest, new savior. I don't know. I like this book a lot more than I thought I would. The beginning was very like shock value beginning, and I feel like that was done to just like get you in. And yeah, so that was fine. But then it was just like interesting, and the main character, she's quite funny. I like her. She's funny. She tries to problem solve, and it like they work, but it's like the weirdest things. Like she noticed this person needed to get out of the room because they were tired, so she threw a book at them to make it look like that they're having a fight or something. Like what a weird thing to do, especially when everyone hates her to begin with. So I really like it. I will definitely be continuing on, and I think the 4th one comes out in July. So Will I read the fourth one in July? Probably not. And now for the books that I physically read. We have Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I can't explain why I like her books so much. Like, they're all so different, yet they're similar in that I feel like I'm watching a TV show or I'm watching a movie while I'm reading this. This one is, what is it described as? A noir movie, a noir book. From New York Times bestselling author Mexican Gothic comes a riveting slow burn of a noir about a daydreaming secretary, a lonesome enforcer, and the mystery of a missing woman they're both desperate to find. It is set in New Mexico in the 1970s, and it was just so good. It was so good. I gave it 4 stars. I loved it. I thought it was super fun to read. Maite is the secretary, and she is just kind of making her way through life. She loves music. She loves her the specific graphic novels that are like romance graphic novels, but only specific ones, and they're kind of like soap operas but in a book. And her neighbor Lenora, who is kind of younger, prettier, and seems to have a really exciting life, asks her to cat sit. And Maite, she will take care of the animals in their apartment complex area, and she doesn't do it because she likes animals. She does it because she likes to steal things, and it's like steal insignificant random things, like not even trash, but like things that the owner may not notice is missing, or if they see it's missing, they aren't going to think that it was stolen. Like, I think she stole one shoe. You're not going to think someone stole your one shoe. It's just misplaced. So just really interesting in that way. And then the other character is Elvis. He is like, I don't know, he is like almost like a criminal, but like, like an organization that is funded by the government, but like off the books essentially, and they are hired to, they're basically like gangsters, but in cahoots with the government. And he just kind of doesn't really like it anymore. He feels betrayed, like a thing happens and he feels very betrayed, and the ending to me just kind of was like, what? Yeah, so I really, really like this. Maite kind of, she makes up stories based on the graphic novels that she's reading, and kind of like she sees a handsome man and she has this like wild imagination around them, kind of like 12-year-olds, like if you've seen Turning Red, like kind of like that. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was great. It's pretty short. And and you can get on Spotify, there is a playlist. I loved listening to the playlist while reading this book. And then lastly, I did read Between Shades of Grey by Rita Septes, which I have a full reading vlog of, where I read the book and watched the movie, both of which I did enjoy. So I ended up giving Between Shades of Grey 4 stars. This was a really, really good book, a very sad book. It is about Lena and her brother and her mother being deported to Siberia, and their father is also deported, but they basically never see their father again. And it like so closely resembles what the Nazis did to Jewish people, to gypsies, to basically anyone that didn't fit into their plan. It seemed like the exact same story, except This one is just so hush hush. And you really feel like it is because the Soviet Union and the US were on the same side. So history is written by the winners, and winners don't always make the best decisions or do the right thing, but they can hide it because they're the winners. So this was just, it was really good. I really liked it. If you want more of my thoughts, definitely go watch that video. But basically they go to the gulag and everybody dies. It's harsh. There's not enough food, and yeah, it was sad. And now this brings us to the second half of the video, which are the books that I plan to read in the month of July. I have a lot of books because, you know, my eyes are always bigger than the calendar. But what I'm going to be doing this month is I set up a little challenge of the books that I'm going to read. And then I'm also doing another challenge where I have to read 1 hour a day. So that is 31 hours in July, which seems completely doable. So I may, we'll see. So the way that I'm going to do the challenge is I'm going to download a tracker on my phone, which I sort of did last night, but then I didn't. I don't know. It was a weird night last night. I was very out of it for some reason. And I remember looking up trackers, but then I remember, like this morning when I opened my phone, I didn't have any of them downloaded. So I don't know what happened there. If I like fell asleep in the middle of doing this. So I have some trackers picked out, and I'm going to be tracking basically that I read at least an hour a day, or just a total of 31 hours. We'll see how that goes, because my thought is I'm already reading more than 30 hours a month. I've got to be. But with the little amount of books that I've been reading the last couple months, I could be like completely off there. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be tracking. Let's see if this helps. I feel like I tend to, like now at least, get a slump in the summer. It used to not be that way. When I was in school, it was, you know, kind of steady, and then in the summer it would jump up because I just all of a sudden had way more free time to be able to read. As an adult, summer doesn't mean you have more free time. So you all get that. I don't think anyone watches this that's still in school, but so the books that I plan to read, I made a challenge, and I have 9 books, and each book starts with, it's an acronym of my name. So Stephanie has 9 letters, 9 books. The first one I have already started, and it is Sag Harbor by Colson Whitehead. This is, I feel like it's basically a coming age story of Benji Cooper. Benji, who wants to go by Ben, he is in high school, he's kind of, you know, growing up, and this is one of the summers of going to Sag Harbor. So Sag Harbor is a kind of coastal town on Long Island where a lot of families that live in the city will come to their summer home in Sag Harbor. And it's kind of interesting because as the kids get a little bit older, their parents don't come out to the beach town as much. So Benji and his brother Reggie are the kids with the empty house. And so they kind of just live on their own. Benji just got a job. He works at an ice cream store. And yeah, it's very interesting. I'm not sure if I like it more than Zone 1. I'm not quite sure. It's written similar to Zone 1. There's more characters, there's more dialogue, less reflection, but there's definitely still societal reflections. Nickel Boys is definitely still my favorite, but I am enjoying this book, and it is part of my challenge to read all of Colson Whitehead's books this year, which I need to get a move on. I still have quite a few of his books to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, still 7 more of his books to read. And then I have a book that I've had on the list before. It is The Swallow's Flight. It is a historical fiction, World War II, I believe it's World War II. And what is interesting about this one is that it is centers around 4 kids, but I'm pretty sure 2 are in England and then 2 are in Germany, and so they end up on opposite sides of the war. And I, you know, as a middle grade growing up, I'm just interested to see how this book takes that concept. For the letter E, I decided to go with Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is a monster of a book that I thought of buying myself, but I decided to grab it from the library. It is heavy, it is large. I don't know much about this book other than it is like what I heard, like a classic vampire story. Vampires are coming back. I don't have like strong opinions about that. I actually really didn't love the whole vampire paranormal thing back in the mid 2000s. So I don't have like a strong excitement about that, but I find J. Kristoff's writing to be very entertaining. So I am definitely looking forward to it and just wanting to sink into a large book. Speaking of large books, I also have Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I've been wanting to read this book for forever. I love The Martian. I did not get to Artemis yet because of how the reviews went. So I think I'll get to it eventually, but I definitely wanted to do this one first because this one got great reviews. And it is, again, about, you know, an astronaut alone in space trying to problem solve. And I'm so ready for it. I guess he like wakes up literally in space, having been separated. So I mean, that sounds like even worse than Mark Watney. And that's all I want to know. It's all I want to know about this book, and I'm so ready. For the letter H, I decided to go with Heirs and Graces, which is a Royal Spinous mystery, and I think this is number 8. I love this series. It is like, it's not the best writing in the world, right? It's just, I would call it like a fluffy mystery. They're so fun. They're so much fun. You're following Georgiana, or Georgie, who is currently the 35th line in the throne. The 35th in line for the throne. And so that means she is, like, she's visible, she is royalty, but she does not get any money from that. And so she's basically poor all the time. She's trying to solve her problems, but because she's royalty, she shouldn't be working. She's not really allowed to have a job. She struggles with that. And then there is also a man in her life, and it is just so much fun. It's been a while since I've read one of the books. I think, is his name Darcy? Which is just so fitting. And she's been spending so many books trying to figure out like what he does. Like, she's figured it out, but he's never really come out and said what his job is. But he just tends to always be there, you know, ready to save her life because of her dumb schemes or whatever. And I'm just looking forward to this. So in this one, Georgie is tasked by the Queen to kind of take in this newfound heir that has been living in the Australian outbacks and teach him about high society, teach him manners, teach him the ropes, all that jazz. And I have a feeling that he is going to be very hard to handle and, you know, do something scandalous, and there's probably going to be a murder, and I'm here for it. I literally want to just read this today. A is for Ariadne, which I went to the library specifically to pick up because I was just wanting to read this book. Ariadne is a princess of Crete, and her brother is the Minotaur, that mythical giant bull. One day Ariadne meets Theseus, pretty sure that's how you pronounce it, and he is the dude that kills the Minotaur. But in this story, Ariadne helps him and sees it as her way to get out of the kind of trapped palace that she is in. It's, you know, it's another Greek retelling, which are super popular right now, and it's great. Who doesn't love a retelling? For N, I decided to go with Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I have only read, I think I've read Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, and that's it. So I would like to correct that at some point in my life, and I thought, how about I read Northanger Abbey? It's pretty short. I bought these editions while I was in college because I love books, I love buying books, and the bookstores that we had were really geared towards college students because apparently college students don't buy books. So I, you know, spent my money on books like this. So very small, short. And yeah, I actually don't really know what Northanger Abbey is about. So that'll be a surprise. Has anyone read Northanger Abbey? I feel like this is one that isn't talked about a lot. Like you've got Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Persuasion. I feel like that's another known one. And I don't know of any others. Northanger Abbey. I for In the Quick by Kate Hope Day. And this is another sci-fi. And it is about our main character, June, who is a very gifted girl, and she makes it into the space program. I'm not sure, she's like an engineer, and she is kind of driven by her uncle's ship that went black. Like the battery cells or whatever stopped running, and so they basically lost contact with this ship. And while the rest of the world has kind of forgotten about it, she is still obsessed with figuring out what the heck happened to my uncle and the crew and the ship. And she teams up with another very smart boy named James, who was her uncle's former protege or protege. And they put their heads together to try and solve the mystery while also falling in love. And yeah, it seems high stakes. The last book in my list of books that I would like to read is Eleanor Park. I read this right when this came out, I think. So like almost 10 years ago. And I remember loving this book so much. Same with Fangirl. And I've been really craving to reread Eleanor and Park. I remember it being pretty sad. Eleanor and Park are like best friends. They're friends and they have their own troubles in their lives. And it is, you know, reaching out, being there for each other. And it's just a lovely book. I can't wait to read this one as well. And those are all the books that I would like to read and my challenge. Hopefully I stick with it and maybe I can read more, but it'll be nice to be able to say like how many hours that I have read in the month of July. Now I haven't started doing that until yesterday, and today's the 4th, so I'll maybe add like 2 hours. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But thanks anyway. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe. Leave me a comment if there are any books that you're excited about reading, or how are you feeling with reading? Are you really into it, or are you slumpy like I feel like I have been the last couple months? Anyway, I will see you in my next video, and until then, bye.